General Oren had no idea of the scale of violence he was about to unleash upon the enemies of the Alara as he rushed toward the government vault, where the transcendent beacon, the ultimate distress signal, lay capable of connecting them to Earth. His adjutant, Lyra, gracefully followed close behind, their boots striking the polished stone floors of the administrative complex in perfect synchronization. The stomping echoed through the wide corridors like the drumbeat of an approaching army. Other species scattered at their approach. A cluster of Xylosian traders pressed themselves against the wall, their multiple eyes blinking rapidly as Oren and Lyra swept past, while a collection of diminutive Quelman bureaucrats actually ducked into a supply closet. Oren understood their reaction. To most galactic species, the Alara looked like apex predators given form. He caught his reflection in a polished panel as they rounded a corner, red skin that seemed to drink in the light, stretched over a frame that stood nearly 2 meters tall. His silver hair, worn long in the traditional military style, cascaded past his shoulders like liquid silver. But it was the eyes that usually did it. Twin orbs of molten amber that seemed to track everything at once, with vertical pupils that could narrow to mere slits. Lyra, beside him, was no less imposing. Though shorter by a head, her own crimson features were invariably interpreted by other species as hidden aggression. The truth would have made them laugh if it weren't so tragic. Despite their fearsome appearance, the Alara were soft-skinned pacifists whose greatest cultural achievements were in poetry, music, and philosophy. Their intimidating looks were nature's cruel joke. They appeared as warriors, but possessed neither the temperament nor the physical durability for violence. Their skin, for all its dramatic red, was thinner than most species, prone to tearing. Their impressive height came with hollow bones that broke easily. Even their predator eyes were better suited for reading in low light than tracking prey. More than anything, Oren hoped that summoning humanity would serve as a deterrent to the countless space pirates of every imaginable species who had clearly identified their weaknesses and decided that the Alara homeworld was the perfect target for relentless raids. Adjutant Lyra spoke up as they passed another checkpoint, her voice shy. "I still have reservations about this course of action, General." Oren glanced sideways at his adjutant, but maintained their pace. "Speak freely, Lyra. Your counsel is always valued." "The beacon is ancient, General," Lyra continued, "a relic from when we were still a monarchy. The treaty it represents," Lyra paused, choosing her words carefully, "it's over 100 years old. The humans have no reason to honor it now. We haven't had diplomatic contact with Earth in decades. They might not even remember we exist." A pair of junior administrators quickly stepped aside as they approached, pressing data tablets to their chests and bowing slightly. Oren acknowledged them with a brief nod but kept walking. The urgency of their mission allowed no delays. "The humans will come," Oren said simply. "But General, how can you be certain?" Lyra asked. "We cut ties with them at the same time we withdrew from the Galactic Council. We chose to keep our close allies, and no one else. And now they will come." "And now they will come," Oren repeated. What he didn't tell Lyra was that humanity had a reputation to maintain. The Deathworlders, as they were known throughout the galaxy, had built their entire interstellar presence on being reliable, if terrifying, allies. They honored their contracts with an almost religious fervor. The price of helping Alara would likely be much smaller than the damage to humanity's reputation if they refused aid to a species that had once been under their protection. Let other species think humans were brutal, violent, and utterly without mercy. But never let them think humans went back on their word. The building suddenly shook, a deep rumble that sent dust drifting from the ornate ceiling. Another raid on their capital. Oren steadied himself against the wall as the tremor passed, noticing how several office doors slid open and public servants peered out, their amber eyes with a mixture of fear and something else. Hope. They knew. Word had nearly spread through the administrative channels that the Council had voted to summon the humans, and that General Oren had been chosen as the diplomat who would introduce humanity to their urgent plight. Some of the faces looking at him were familiar bureaucrats he'd worked with during his years in the diplomatic corps, before the raids had gotten so bad that even former pacifist diplomats were given military ranks out of sheer necessity. "Stay strong," he told them, putting as much confidence into his voice as he could muster. "Help is coming." They nodded, some even managing weak smiles before retreating back into their offices. Oren wondered how many of them truly believed it. He wondered if he truly believed it himself. The administrative area seemed to stretch on forever, each section requiring another security check, another verification of their clearance. It hadn't always been this way. Once this building had been a symbol of Alaran openness, with tours for younglings and cultural expositions for off-world visitors. Now it was a fortress, and not a very effective one at that. Finally, they reached the secure vault. The door was massive, 3 meters tall and nearly as wide, constructed from a composite material that supposedly could withstand direct orbital fire. 2 guards flanked it, their ceremonial armor doing little to hide how young they were. The raids had taken so many of their experienced security personnel. General Oren and Adjutant Lyra, Oren announced, producing his identification chip, "We're here on Council authority to access compartment number 1. The guards exchanged glances. Even they knew what compartment 1 contained. "Yes, General." The senior guard, barely out of his adolescent molting by the look of his still brightening skin, stammered. "But we were told to expect you. Please submit to the security scan." Oren spread his arms and submitted to the familiar tingle of the security field passing over his body. Beside him, Lyra did the same, though her grumbling about excessive precautions was clearly audible. The general thought nothing of it. These excessive security measures existed because of the constant raids on their world. He remembered a time when he could simply walk into a storage facility and retrieve alien artifacts without even having to ask permission. Back then, the greatest concern had been proper cataloging, not preventing desperate citizens from stealing off-world technology in hopes of bargaining with pirates for their family's safety. "Clear," the guard announced after what felt like an eternity. "You may proceed to compartment 1. I'll need to accompany you inside." The massive door cycled open with a series of mechanical clicks and pneumatic sounds. Cool, climate-controlled air rushed out, carrying with it the faint smell of preservation chemicals and rusty metal. Even the guards at the door craned their necks to peek inside, trying to catch a glimpse of the legendary item they were about to retrieve. The vault's interior was a study in organized history. Row upon row of sealed compartments lined the walls, each containing some gift or artifact from the various species Ilara had encountered over the centuries. Some were incredibly useful: water purification systems from the Aquari, atmospheric processors from the Veil. Others were less practical but no less valued: crystalline sculptures from Nexus 2 that sang when touched, paintings from old Earth that somehow looked different to each viewer, tokens of friendship and alliance from a dozen different worlds. Compartment 1 stood apart from the others, positioned at the very back of the vault and surrounded by an additional containment field. The marking on it was simple: Earth Military Treaty, restricted access. Oren approached it slowly, aware of Lyra and the guard following close behind. His fingers moved across the access panel, inputting his personal authorization code. The field shimmered and died. Is it true? It's never been activated?" the guard asked, apparently forgetting protocol in his curiosity. "Not on our world," Oren confirmed, pressing his palm to the biometric scanner. "Not in 93 years." The compartment opened at once. Inside, resting on a bed of shock-absorbing foam, was the device that might save their world, or doom it to a different kind of destruction. Lyra leaned forward, her amber eyes narrowing as she studied the artifact. "That's it? That's the legendary human emergency beacon." Oren had to admit it was underwhelming. The device was simply a metal box, roughly the size of a thick book, with a single red button set into its surface. No displays, no obvious power source, no indication of the advanced technology that supposedly lay within. "I was expecting something more impressive," Lyra continued, reaching out as if to touch it before pulling her hand back. "Are we certain it even still functions? Humans build things to last, but 90 years. "What did you expect?" Oren asked, carefully lifting the device from its resting place. It was heavier than it looked, the metal warm to the touch despite the vault's cool temperature. "I don't know, something with weapons attached, spikes perhaps. You know what they say about human aesthetics. If it doesn't look like it could kill you, it's not properly designed." Lyra paused, tilting her head. "Do you think it summons their ships directly, or does it open some kind of, what do they call them?" Hellgate? Despite the gravity of the situation, Oren almost smiled. His adjutant's knowledge of humanity came entirely from third-hand accounts and wild extranet rumors. It's a communications device, Lyra, nothing more. Oh, Lyra seemed almost disappointed. I suppose that makes sense, though knowing humans, it probably doubles as a weapon somehow. Everything they make does, from what I hear. Did you know their eating utensils are called knives and are sharp enough to... Another explosion, distant but powerful enough to feel through the vault's reinforced walls. Closer than the last one, the pirates were getting bolder, striking multiple districts simultaneously. How many raids did this make today? 3, 4? Orn had lost count. The realization that their city was suffering 2 simultaneous raids sent a surge of desperate energy through him. His people were dying out there. Families huddled in shelters that weren't built to withstand serious assault. Children learning to recognize the different sounds of energy weapons so they knew which ones meant they needed to run and which ones meant it was already too late. His finger found the red button. Such a simple thing. One press and everything would change. For 93 years, this device had sat in this vault, collecting dust, waiting for a moment of desperation that previous generations had managed to avoid. That moment was now. Orn pressed the button. For several heartbeats, nothing happened. The button depressed with an unremarkable click, stayed down for a moment, then slowly rose back to its original position. No lights, no sounds, no indication that anything had activated. Did it work? Lyra asked, leaning closer. Perhaps the power source has depleted after all this time? Or maybe there's another step? Humans do enjoy their redundant safety measures. Should we press it again? Or... The device suddenly grew warm in Oren's hands. A seam appeared along its edge, invisible until that moment, and the top portion began to unfold like a mechanical flower. Panels shifted and rotated, revealing hidden components that clicked into place with precision engineering. Within seconds, the simple box had transformed into something far more complex, with a small screen rising from the center of the newly revealed interface. The screen flickered to life, displaying a progress bar and text in several languages, including Alaran. Establishing sub-ether link, please wait. Faster than light communication, Lyra whispered. The power requirements alone. How is something this small sustaining that kind of connection? Oren didn't answer. He was too focused on the screen as the progress bar filled and was replaced by a new message. Connection established, routing to available handler. The screen shifted again, and suddenly they were looking at a human woman. She appeared to be in her middle years by human standards, with short-cropped brown hair streaked with premature gray and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She wore what Oren recognized as a military uniform, though he couldn't identify the rank insignia. "This is Handler Kyle, Earth Defense Treaty Division," she said, her voice coming through a speaker Oren hadn't even noticed forming. "I'm receiving an emergency activation from..." She paused, looking at something off-screen. "Alara? Well, that's a name I haven't seen in the active files for a while. According to my records, your species cut diplomatic ties with humanity about a century ago. This beacon should have been decommissioned." Lyra made a sound somewhere between a squeak and a melodic gasp, her red skin paling to almost pink. Oren felt his adjutant's panic as an almost physical presence, but forced himself to remain calm. "The defense treaty persists," Oren stated, proud that his voice remained steady. "Our previous monarch paid a substantial sum for humanity's protection. We have never requested aid before today." Kale's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes sharpened. "One moment, please." The second stretched like hours. Oren could hear both of his hearts pounding in sync, the unmistakable rhythm of an Alara under extreme stress. Beside him, Lyra had begun making that odd, wet chittering sound her species produced when anxious, like someone stirring jelly with metal rods. Finally, Kale looked back at the camera. "You're correct. The treaty is still listed as active, with all fees paid for a minimum. Clever of your old king. I need identification and a detailed explanation of what kind of assistance you require." Relief flooded through Oren so intensely he almost swayed. "I am General Oren of the Alaran Defense Ministry, formerly of the Diplomatic Corps. This is my adjutant Lyra. Our homeworld is under sustained attack by multiple pirate factions. Our defense forces are overwhelmed. Humanity is our last hope. We have no other allies since we withdrew from the Galactic Council. Kale nodded, making notes on something outside the camera's view. I see. Is it just your homeworld under attack, or are your colonies also affected? The question confused Orin. I'm sorry, could you clarify why that matters? The human smiled, and something about that expression sent a chill down Orin's spine despite the warmth of the vault. Well, General, we need to consider all options. If it's just a colony, the simplest solution might be to evacuate your people and let us turn the whole planet into glass. Much easier than a ground invasion. We could have you relocated within a standard week. The words hit Orin like a physical blow. Beside him, Lyra's anxious sound cut off abruptly, replaced by the silence of pure shock. But if it's your homeworld, Kale continued as if she hadn't just casually suggested genocide as a convenience, then we need to be more surgical. Troops on the ground, targeted strikes, that sort of thing. More complicated, but doable. We prefer to avoid that when possible. It's resource-intensive, and the cleanup afterward is always messy. Orin found his voice, though it came out rougher than he intended. It is our homeworld. Alara, 20 billion souls. 20 billion? Kale's eyebrows rose slightly. And you said multiple pirate factions? How many ships are we talking about? At last count, over 300 vessels of various sizes. They've turned our system into their personal raiding ground. Kale whistled, a sharp, piercing sound that made both Alara flinch. That's substantial, but totally manageable. She looked directly at the camera, and Orin felt the full weight of her attention. I need to be clear about something, General. If we intervene completely. No half measures, no negotiations with the pirates, no prisoners, unless we deem it strategically necessary. Is that acceptable? The way she phrased it, intervene rather than help, and the casual mention of no prisoners sent another chill through Orin. But what choice did they have? Another explosion sounded in the distance, followed by the wail of emergency sirens. Do we have your permission to intervene on Alara? Kale asked. We'll need approximately 1 week to resolve the situation. The terms are simple. You'll meet with our admiral once we arrive in orbit, and you personally will serve as our liaison for the duration of the operation. You have full oversight, but understand that once we begin, we won't stop until the threat is eliminated completely. 1 week. The vagueness of it, the casual confidence that they could solve in 7 days, what Alara had suffered under for years, filled Orin with an uncomfortable mixture of hope and fear. What exactly would humanity's intervention look like? What did completely eliminated mean to a species that offered planetary annihilation as a casual first option? But as another tremor shook the building and he thought of his people dying in the streets above, Orin knew he had no choice. We accept your terms, he said. When can we expect? The screen went dark. The device began folding back into itself, panels retracting with the same mechanical precision as before. Within seconds, it had returned to its original form, just a metal box with a red button. Wait! Lyra stepped forward. Did we lose the connection? Should we press it again? Orin stared at the now inert device in his hands. No, I think that's all we get. But she said a week. How will we know when they're coming? How will we recognize their ships? What if, I don't know, Orin admitted, feeling the weight of what he'd just done settling on his shoulders like a lead cloak. He'd called the Deathworlders. He'd invited humanity back to Alara, and the way Kyle had smiled when discussing their options. What had he unleashed? 3 days. It had only been 3 days since Orin pressed that red button, and already the impossible had become reality. The human fleet had arrived. Now General Orin and Lyra found themselves being led through the corridors of the Astro One, humanity's flagship, by 2 human escorts who seemed almost bored by their duty. The humans wore standard military uniforms, practical gray and black affairs that looked utterly unremarkable compared to the ceremonial dress Orin and Lyra had donned for this meeting. Bridge is just ahead, one of the escorts said, barely glancing back at them. He was young, probably no more than 25 Earth years, with the kind of confidence that came from absolute certainty in one's superiority. Admirals expecting you. The corridors themselves were a study in human pragmatism. No ornamentation, no cultural displays, just clean metal walls marked with cryptic signs here and there. Everything about the ship screamed a lack of concern for aesthetics. The bridge doors slid open at once, and Oren stepped into what should have been the nerve center of a military operation. Instead, he found himself wondering if he'd somehow been led to the wrong room. The atmosphere was relaxed. That was the only word for it. Crew members lounged at their stations, some with their feet up on consoles. One was actually playing what looked like a card game on her screen. Music, something with a heavy percussive beat, played softly in the background. And there, standing before the main viewport, with his back to them, was a figure that could only be the Admiral. He held a glass of something amber-colored, swirling it occasionally as he gazed out at the stars, or rather, at what used to be stars. Oren could see debris fields floating past, the glittering remains of what had once been pirate vessels. Admiral Jones, one of the escorts, announced, "The Alaran representatives are here." The Admiral turned, and Oren got his first look at the human who commanded this force. Jones was ordinary. Average height for a human, perhaps in his 50s, with graying hair and a slight paunch that suggested comfortable living. His uniform jacket was unbuttoned, and there was a stain on his shirt that looked suspiciously like sauce from a recent meal. "Ah, General Oren," Jones smiled broadly, raising his glass in greeting. "And Adjutant Lyra, right? Welcome aboard the Astro One. Can I get you something to drink? The whiskey is real Earth stock, 20-year-old single malt. Oh, we got some decent synthetic if you prefer." Oren found himself at a loss for words. This was not how he imagined this meeting would go. "Admiral, I thank you, but perhaps we should discuss the operation?" Jones waved his free hand dismissively. "Not much to discuss, really. My boys are just about done mopping up the orbital threats. Counted 302 pirate vessels when we jumped in. Down to..." He glanced at one of the relaxed crew members. "Thompson, where we at?" Thompson didn't even look up from his console. 14 left, sir. They're trying to hide behind Alara's moon. Tech Team 4 is herding them into a kill box as we speak. Should be nearly done." Jones took another sip of his whiskey. "Ground forces just deployed in drop pods about 20 minutes ago. That'll be messier, I'm afraid. Urban combat always is. But give them 3, maybe 4 days, and your planet will be pirate-free. We guarantee our work." Before Oren could process this casual assessment of potential genocide, another crew member, a woman with her feet up on her station, chimed in. "How does one let their planet get this infested with pirates? I mean, 300 ships? That's not a raid problem, that's an occupation." The casual cruelty of the question, asked in the same tone someone might inquire about a pest control issue, made Oren's skin flush darker red. Beside him, Lyra made that nervous humming sound again. We, Oren started, but his mind was reeling. 300 ships nearly destroyed in 3 days. Ground forces deployed like they were dealing with a minor inconvenience. He'd expected competence from the humans, but this casual decimation was beyond his comprehension. "How can you be so relaxed about this?" Oren finally managed. "This is a war. Thousands of pirates, multiple species, coordinated attacks on our cities." Lyra found her voice, supporting her superior's bewilderment. "You're discussing the systematic elimination of over 300 crews as if it were garbage disposal." "Garbage disposal," Admiral Jones supplied helpfully, then laughed, a deep, genuine belly laugh that made several crew members grin. "Because that's what it is, General. This isn't a war. Wars are what we fight against other human colonies or equivalent civilizations. This," he gestured at the viewport where another piece of debris floated past, "this is pest control." The Admiral moved to his command chair but didn't sit, instead leaning against it casually. "Let me explain something about human military doctrine. We don't do proportional response, never have, never will. You called for help with a pirate problem. We sent a fleet that could glass a small solar system, overwhelming force, applied suddenly and without mercy. It's actually more humane in the long run, ends things quickly. But surely there are rules of engagement," Oren pressed. "Trials for captured prisoners, protocols?" "Thompson, pull up some of the ground footage," Jones ordered. Let our friends see what their taxes bought them. You sure, sir? It's pretty fresh, and the LRNs might. They deserve to see what they're paying for. The main view screen shifted from the star field to a multi-panel display showing various locations on Alara's surface. Orin recognized some of them. The Theron Mountains where pirates had established strongholds, the abandoned industrial district in the capital, where they'd been launching raids from, the cave systems in the southern continent. In each panel, human forces were at work. Work was perhaps too gentle a term. In the mountain footage, Orin watched power-armored human soldiers advancing through a pirate encampment. No, advancing was wrong. They were strolling, walking casually through defensive positions as plasma fire sparked harmlessly off their armor. One soldier had what looked like a sandwich in one hand, taking bites between bursts from his weapon. The pirates, a mix of Gorvak and Sentinel species, were trying desperately to retreat, but there was nowhere to go. The humans had surrounded the camp completely. What followed was not a battle. It was an extermination. The cave system footage was somehow worse. The humans had deployed some kind of gas. The pirates came streaming out, gasping, directly into overlapping fields of fire. The soldiers didn't even take cover. They stood in the open, picking off targets with mechanical precision. In the urban combat zones, Orin watched a single human soldier walk through a building full of pirates. The pirates' weapons did nothing. The human's weapon did everything. When it was over, the soldier tagged the building with some kind of marker and moved on to the next one. Orin's stomach turned. Beside him, Lyra had gone very quiet, her usual nervous sounds replaced by rapid, shallow breathing. Beautiful, isn't it? In a twisted way, one of the crew members commented. That was when Orin's body rebelled. He lurched forward, hand clamped over his mouth. But it was too late. His morning meal came up in a violent rush, splattering across the pristine bridge floor. A moment later, Lyra joined him, the two Alarans retching helplessly as the casual slaughter continued on the screens above them. Ah, someone said. Should have warned them about the footage. My bad. Someone get a cleaning bot, Jones ordered, not sounding particularly concerned, and maybe some water for our guests. Orin wiped his mouth, mortified by his loss of control, but unable to stop staring at the screens. How can you laugh? This is necessary, Jones supplied. Look, I get it. Your species are pacifists. This seems excessive to you. But let me ask you something. Those pirates killed how many of your people over the past years? Thousands, Orin whispered. Tens of thousands. Right, and if we followed your rules, trials, due process, imprisonment, what would happen? We'd spend millions of credits processing criminals from many different species through various different legal systems. Half would probably escape or be released on technicalities. The other half would sit in prisons costing more money, possibly escaping later to do it all again. A crew member handed Orin a cup of water, which he accepted gratefully. But surely some mercy. Mercy, huh? Jones's expression hardened for the first time. General, those pirates showed no mercy to your people. They targeted civilians, killed children, destroyed families. You called us because your mercy, your peaceful ways, failed. You called the Deathworlders. Did you think that was just a colorful nickname? The footage continued playing. More camps eliminated, more pirates cut down without ceremony or hesitation. The humans moved through each location with the same terrifying efficiency, as inexorable as a natural disaster. The trials, Lyra managed weakly. What about justice? This is justice, Jones said simply. Swift, final, and absolute. Every pirate who dies here is one who will never raid another ship, never kill another innocent. We're not judges, General. We're executioners. You hired us to solve a problem, and we're solving it. Orin watched another pirate stronghold fall, the humans moving through it like a plague. Part of him, the part raised on Alaran philosophy and ethics, recoiled at the brutality. But another part, the part that had seen the bodies of civilians after pirate raids, that had held crying children who'd lost their parents, that had watched his peaceful world torn apart by those who mistook kindness for weakness. That part understood. You're right, he said quietly, surprising himself. They chose this when they attacked defenseless civilians. When they turned our world into their hunting ground, they chose this. Jones nodded approvingly. Ha, now you're getting it. We don't enjoy this, General, but we're very, very good at it. When someone threatens our allies, even former allies who haven't talked to us in decades, we respond with everything we have. No half measures, no hesitation. But why? Oren had to ask. Why are you so capable of this? You look like us, like most species. Bipedal, no natural weapons, no armor. My people appear more dangerous than you, yet we could never. Because we evolved on Earth, Jones said, as if that explained everything. When Oren's confusion showed, the Admiral continued, everything on our planet evolved, trying to kill everything else. Your species evolved looking dangerous to avoid conflict. We evolved looking harmless while being absolutely lethal. He gestured at the screens where the operation continued. This is what controlled human violence looks like. Directed, purposeful, permanent. The bridge fell quiet except for the occasional status report and the background music. Oren stared at the screens, watching his world being cleaned of its tormentors, with all the emotion of someone pressure-washing a dirty sidewalk. How much longer? He asked finally. 3 days for the ground forces to finish up. Maybe another day if some of the pirates have better bunkers than expected. Then another day or two for verification sweeps. Call it a week total, just like we promised. A week. In 1 week, the humans would accomplish what Alara had failed to do in years. The pirate threat that had brought their civilization to its knees would be gone, erased by professionals doing a job they'd done 1,000 times before. What do we owe you? Oren asked, dreading the answer. What price would the humans extract for this service? Jones grinned. Nothing. The old king paid us in full, remember? Honestly, we should thank you. The boys needed a live fire exercise, and pirate hunting is good for morale, keeps the skills sharp. An exercise, the salvation of his world, was a training exercise for the humans. Oren looked once more at the screens, at the continuing extermination of those who had terrorized his people. He thought about the irony of it all. His species evolved to look like predators but unable to truly hunt, saved by a species that looked like prey but were the apex predators of the galaxy. Thank you for your kindness, he said simply, meaning it despite everything. Don't mention it, Jones replied, already turning back to his whiskey in the viewport. Seriously, don't. We have a reputation to maintain. Can't have people thinking humans are soft. As another pirate ship exploded in the distance, reduced to glittering debris in seconds, Oren reflected that there was little danger of that. The Deathworlders had come to Alara, and they had shown no mercy, exactly as advertised.